Well, it's exciting times. It's opening day. Our guys have been here for a couple of weeks, working out on their own for the most part. But you know, it's a universal start date today, January 24th, exactly 3 weeks from opening day on Valentine's Day. So it's always, you know, new beginnings. We get to spend the fall with these guys. A lot of new faces. Only 6 returners from last year's team. 31 new guys. So it's exciting times. Exciting times. I'm looking forward to a great season.
A lot of new guys are expecting Daniel Couvet, obviously, maybe going to help these younger guys kind of set the tone for how you're expected to perform.
We hope so. I think, you know, we hope that Couvet continues to build on last season. Obviously had a great year, but our goal is always to get better every day and every season. So as far as he's concerned, he's got to worry about Daniel Couvet and do his job and do everything that he does better. And hopefully guys follow along and work as hard as he does and study the game as well as he does. And just do their part.
You said he's a hard worker. Speak a little bit to him as an athlete. He's been projected to like so many preseason honors so far, maybe the best player in the ACC this upcoming season. So how do you speak to him as a player? Well,
he's obviously very talented, physically talented. What sets him apart is he's a student of the game. He studies the game. He loves to practice. So those combinations kind of feed the fact that he's such a good player and continues to get better every day. And he understands what his weaknesses are. And just, you know, it's easy for him to just go and hit all day long. You know, he understands he's got to work on his defense and his base running and everything else. And he's a great self-evaluator, and he works hard in all aspects of the game.
JD, they said that he's the first one in, last one out. But give me an example of something that you noticed that you're like, wow, this kid's a little different.
Well, you know, the first week, all our guys were back a week before classes started, and they're out here on their own working out and you know, getting phone calls on Saturdays and Sundays that he wants to get on the field and take ground balls. Can we put the tarp out and stuff like that? So that's a special, you know, that, for a kid any age, you know, especially a 20-year-old, 19, 20-year-old sophomore. I can think of a lot of things he could be doing on a Saturday, Sunday, but he wants to come out on the field, and he's bringing teammates with him. So that's always a good sign and good sign of leadership.
You were a Hurricane. Obviously, you grew up here. He's a lifelong Hurricane. I guess he committed like when he was in 9th grade.
Yeah,
in this day and age of guys jumping from one place to another, his heart is here.
It is, and again, I'm sure he probably had opportunities to go elsewhere, and he chose to stay. And you know, his dad works at the university, so he's been a Cane for a very long time before he even knew it, probably. So, but obviously, we're very fortunate to have him, and just if you can spread his, you know, love and enthusiasm for the program is the most important part.
Speaking of building off of last year, obviously it was your first season as head coach. Just what do you take from last year that will help you benefit this year?
Well, a lot of lessons learned, you know, the hard way. So obviously, wasn't a great season, but it was I always say you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. So there was a lot of opportunities to learn and get better from last year. So, you know, it's we had some injuries, key injuries that came into play last year as well. It was a very young roster. This year, you look at our rosters; it's a very mature group. We got a couple of 24-year-olds. You know, one of our catchers got engaged over the break. So it's I think the mindset and the attitude is just it's way different, and it comes with age and maturity.
JD, you talked about making sure you build a lineup around Daniel, you know, making sure you brought in bats. Just how do you feel like the rest of the guys, and maybe how you're kind of hoping it shakes out with the other offensive guys?
Well, you know, you got Dorian Gonzalez back as well from last year. Had a good season for us as a junior. He's back as a senior. You know, we got Jake Ogden coming in. We got Hudson at first base. We got Williams in the outfield. We got a couple freshmen in the outfield, and Torres and Peralta and you know, Max Galvin coming in from Oklahoma State. So we feel like we've created enough protection around them where they can't just, you know, eliminate them from a lineup, right? There was a couple teams that would, you know, I think Virginia Tech intentionally walked them with nobody on. You know, I don't think that's going to happen when we build some guys and put some guys behind them to protect them in the lineup. We feel like we've done that.
These 3 weeks of preseason practices, do you stay with the guys in line? A lot of competition still for spots, you feel like, or do you feel like you've kind of have your guys?
No, it's still a lot of competition. Again, when you have, you know, you can have 7 new starters in the lineup, there's always competition. So the great thing about this roster is not a big drop off from the starter to whoever the backup ends up being. So that to me is going to be the biggest challenge. It's been a very close group. They hang out off the field often. It's a great locker room and clubhouse, and that's all put to the test on February 14th when the first lineup is posted, and there's only 9 starting hitters and 1 starting pitcher. So that to me is going to be the biggest challenge with this team.
pitching wise, where are you at with your kind of the starters that you're eyeing, or how many groups?
Well, when you lost our entire weekend rotation from a year ago, and our could be our closer, because our closer last year, being Nick Robert, is not going to be in that role this year. He was kind of out of position last year. He's more suited to be a starter, and he definitely will be one of those weekend starting guys. You're going to have 4 new starters, so it's competition is going to come down to that last week. February 13th, we'll know what the rotation is going to be. Probably a week before that with bullpens, but it's great. It's competition is healthy. It drives guys to work harder. The key again is once they don't win a job that they expect to have, how they respond. How do they become the best relief pitcher and help the bullpen and help the team win games?
You have 13 freshmen on the roster, like you said. It's a mature group, but also it's a lot of young players as well. Has anybody stand out like in that key group, or is it just all a group effort of what's going forward?
On the offensive side, defensively, we feel that Peralta and Torres can play center field and start from day one. The question with any freshman hitter is the bat. And I think they're challenged enough in our inner squads with our pitching staff, the depth of our pitching staff, that learning curve is being cut down dramatically. So, guys like Puig is a guy that's been a pleasant surprise. He came in as a third baseman, but because of necessity, we put him behind the plate, and he's shown the ability to play there right away. So that gives us 3 freshman catchers and 1 senior. So our backup is going to be a freshman, so he's going to get significant playing time. And on the mound, AJ Siskard, Mikey Fernandez, Lachi is those guys are going to get innings. Whether they're in the starting rotation, whether they're setup guys, who knows? But they are going to get a lot of significant time with significant innings. And I think the strength of this team is the depth in the bullpen, something we lacked drastically the last couple of years, to be honest with you. But last year as well. But you're going to see that the depth that we have is going to set us apart.
What have you seen with Tanner Smith behind the plate defensively? I know that's obviously a key point. And how much that can help your team overall?
The biggest thing with him is, even coming in as a transfer first day in, it's his leadership qualities, showed right away. Without even being asked to, he kind of took charge of that with the pitching staff, and took charge of the clubhouse, to be honest with you. And that's exactly what you want out of your catcher. Whether he hits 300 or not, he's got to be a leader, number one. A guy's got to be a key part, an ingredient, as we call it, when it comes to the pitching staff, because he's going to be involved with those guys heavily. And he showed those qualities right away from day one.
Coach, with so many versatile players, how do you balance getting the best defensive lineup and then also get as many bats as you can in the lineup?
I think you don't finish the game the way you started. So you're going to start with your best 9 bats in the lineup. Depends on the mound. If it's a guy that's a contact guy, Nick Robert is the 8 contact guy, and that's why he was kind of out of position last year in the bullpen. But he's a guy that's very efficient if he has a good defense behind him. So where if you have a Brian Walters starting, then he's more of a strikeout guy. You can sacrifice some of your defense and put another bat in there. But we've got plenty of pieces to move around, and you're probably not going to finish games the way you start them. That's a good thing. That means we got the lead, and use those guys accordingly to whatever our strengths are at the time and what's needed.
Where are you at right now, health-wise? Is everybody or other players that
outstanding? Everybody's healthy. We had one. Robert Evans was a left-handed starting pitcher out of Georgia State that came in with a surgically repaired. It wasn't soft tissue. It wasn't a Tommy John or anything. It was like a fractured bone. So he missed most of the fall, but he got in the last week of fall ball and threw a couple innings. And he's been healthy, ready to go. Alex Stanek is the only other pitcher that did not throw all fall, but he's 100%. He'll be throwing today, first day in the inner squad.
Nolan or Evan, one of them down?
He's fine. So his arm was a little sore in the fall.
Which one was it?
Nolan Johnson. But he's back 100% as well. It was just put him on a some time off and then a throwing program, and he's good to go.
Is this the coldest first practice you guys have had?
By far.
Yeah.
By far. I don't think I've worn so many layers ever here as a Hurricane, at home anyway.
Any other questions for JD? Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, JD.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Everything good? Was the family?